Welcome to the Leadership Purpose with Robin podcast. I'm your host, Robin L. Owens, Ph.D. And this is where we dive in each week to give advice, tools, and tips for high-achieving women leaders. And we talk about leadership purpose and its importance for you. I am a college professor, and when I am not doing that, I am speaking, writing, coaching, mentoring, and teaching high-achieving women leaders how to find, and not only find, but how to stay in alignment with their leadership purpose so they can make a meaningful difference right there in their career, leadership, or business. Okay, let's dive in. Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Robin. Welcome back to another episode. And I am so glad you're here. Thank you for being here and for listening in. And as I've done in the past with my solo episodes, I will do again today and share a story from my experience, but always with the intent to encourage you. And today I encourage you to think about the power of self-reflection when you lose your self-identity. The power of self-reflection when you lose your self-identity. Tell Monica I said to take care of you. Those were the last words I heard my mother speak before she passed away. It was many, many years ago. I was living in Connecticut, was a young adult living at home with my mother in Connecticut. And my friend Monica and I went to North Carolina for a college homecoming. It was Monica's college homecoming. We had a fabulous time during the homecoming weekend. And now it was Monday morning and we were headed back to Connecticut. So before we left for the airport, I called my mother to say, we're heading back now. We had a great weekend. And she told me about her day. She took a walk and had a nice walk. And later the Jehovah's Witnesses came by and she had a nice conversation with them. She wasn't a Jehovah's Witness, but she was appreciating the conversation. And so it was a pleasant conversation. And she said, tell Monica I said to take care of you. What? It made no sense to me. I just didn't think it didn't make sense. But so anyway, I didn't think any more of it. We went on the flight, got back to Connecticut. And when I got home and called to her, she didn't answer. So I checked in the bedroom and I could see that it appeared that she was lying down for a nap. She still had her clothes on, late afternoon, So I thought she was taking a nap. And as I looked closer and she wasn't responding, I saw this beautiful, peaceful look on her face. And instantly I knew she was not there. So we called the ambulance. They took her to the hospital. The doctors said that she had a heart attack in her sleep. And that is what caused her death. So needless to say, I was shocked. I mean, especially when you just have a conversation with someone and a couple hours later they're gone. It's just unfathomable. And so I was in this deep shock, despair, grief, loss. I didn't know what to do with myself. And I was just, for the first 2 weeks, I didn't even go back to work. I just kind of stayed home, sat in the chair where she used to sit. And during that 2 weeks, many loved ones, friends, family were checking on me, visiting and calling. And then toward the end of the 2 weeks, Monica called me. And she was also one who had been checking on me every day. And so now we're coming to the end of this 2-week period. And she calls and says, what are you doing? And of course, I had been sitting there crying. But when I answered the phone, I tried to pretend as if I had not been crying. And so she said, in what I call her Black woman voice, girl, you need to stop all that crying and get back to work. And I say this was an act of tough love. And it occurred to me she was right. It was time for me to move forward, to take the next step in this process of getting back to life. And so I went back to work and began to rebuild my own sense of my life and who I was. But I just didn't know, my whole identity was wrapped around being a daughter and the connection I had with my mother, because she loved me, and she loved me the most. And I was the one that I feel like I loved her the most of all people. We were very close. So now, who am I? What do I do? So as some months passed by, I began to really set out to find who I was in this new reality, this new life, this new way of being for me. And I thought about some things I always wanted to do and began to set into motion doing some of those things. And one was I went back to school to get a graduate degree, Master's of Divinity degree in graduate school. And then eventually, many years later, I went on and earned a Ph.D. But through that early graduate school experience, it was a journey of self-exploration through spiritual searching, academic researching, and deep self-reflection. And so I learned a lot. I learned about how ancient religions and cultures and traditions made meaning, and a vast array of contemporary scholars, how they conveyed that meaning and did that side of the work. Alongside of it, I also reconnected and rediscovered myself, who I was, and my self-identity. And it came through this constant and consistent self-reflection. And I realized I'm one who is profoundly fulfilled when I'm actively engaged in a meaningful life, meaningful work, meaningful service. So this came to me after a period of deep and consistent self-reflection. And today I'm here to share with you the power of self-reflection when you lose your self-identity. So you might be saying, what do you mean? What is self-reflection? Well, generally speaking, it's taking deliberate and intentional time to think about yourself, right? The key is deliberate and intentional time to really think about yourself. And I'll say more about that in a moment. But let me tell you first why it's important. Self-reflection is important because it helps give you the information about yourself. It helps you understand who you are, and it helps you get in touch with how you want to be in the world. So, and that in turn helps you do the things that you want to do in this life, in your work, in your leadership. And author Elizabeth Lesser, in her New York Times bestselling book, Broken Open, How Difficult Times Can Help Us Grow. The book is Broken Open, How Difficult Times Can Help Us Grow. Elizabeth Lesser says we all face times of challenge, change, transition, loss. And the idea is to go through it in such a way that we grow from it. And she uses this idea of broken open. She takes that metaphor from the flower bud and how it breaks open to blossom. And in her work, she teaches how to use those experiences and respond to those experiences of loss and transition in a way that promotes growth. And she works with individuals who've experienced all kinds of loss. So whether it's a loss through loss of job, loss of a marriage through divorce, or going through some tragic illness or loss of a loved one, as in the case for me. Elizabeth Lesser in her work says, through all the hundreds of folks she has worked with and has shared some of their stories in her book, they all were able to grow. They were all to become stronger, wiser, and more in touch with their purpose and passion. So she gives many examples of how people have grown through those experiences. And she gives tools on how to do that. And some of the tools that she shares with, and with the intent of when you go through a loss, change, transition, The key is to stay aware, to keep your heart open, keep your mind awake, and don't shut down. That's the premise of her book, Broken Open, right? Stay aware and respond. And she gives tools to do that. Some of them we may be familiar with, but they're effective, especially when you're working with a teacher or a psychotherapist. This is what she says in her book. So tools like meditation, prayer, psychotherapy, talking with others, writing in a journal, artistic pursuits like painting or singing, and physical movement. So those are some of the tools that she shares in her book for us to grow through difficult times, through loss, through change, through challenge, transition. But you might be asking, well, how do you do it? How do you do this specifically? What's something I can do right away? And as I've done in the past, I like to just leave you with one thing to get you started. You can get the book. I don't have any stake or connection with the book. I'm just offering a resource. You can get that book, Broken Open, How Difficult Times Can Help Us Grow, by New York Times bestselling author Elizabeth Lesser. But what you can do right now to help you rediscover and reconnect with your self-identity is to take some time to do some deep and consistent self-reflection. Now, I'll tell you what has worked for me and has worked for many others that I know and have worked with. Self-reflection, it could be, you can go in many directions, right? Well, what area will I think about? What helped me and others reconnect to ourselves after a time of loss is to think about 4 things. Think about what comes naturally to you. What are those things that come naturally to you? What I call your natural abilities. The second thing is, what are those things that really matter to you? Those are your values. The third, what are the things you really love to do? What are some, 1 or 2 things you really love to do? Those are your passions. And number 4, how can you be in service to someone or something other than yourself? Help in some way. So you can reflect on those 4 parts of yourself, and they will help you reconnect with who you are and reconnect with that self-identity. And one way you can do that is just ask yourself those questions. If you're a person that likes to write in a journal. You can share it in conversation with someone if you're more a person who connects through speaking. So just ask yourself the questions and take notes. What comes naturally to me? What really matters to me? What do I love to do? And how can I serve someone or something other than myself? So those are the 4 questions that you could use as a tool of reflection that you can take right away. You can do it over the weekend, this very weekend. You can take a couple days and you'll have gone through it. Take the time for this deep and consistent reflection. It will set you on the path to rediscover your self-identity. Okay, everyone, that's it for today. And as always, I'm glad you're here and I hope to talk to you next time. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Leadership Purpose with Robin podcast. If you enjoyed it, head on over and rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. New episodes drop every week and I can't wait to hang out with you again soon. Meanwhile, this is Robin signing off. See you next time.